Welcome to the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Series podcast. Each week, we'll learn from leaders who are driving change and making an impact. Now here's your host, the CEO of the Youngstown Publishing Company, Jeff Leo Herman.
Today on the podcast, I missed a very big opportunity. An opportunity to make a Myron Cope reference. And that's because today we are speaking to Bob Hannon. Bob is the president of the United Way of Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley, and we had a phenomenal conversation. I really invite you to join. We got into a topic which I discussed quite a bit. We have a shared philosophy of, do we want the people around us to ask permission or beg for forgiveness? And that leadership style is a very distinct leadership style when you appreciate those that want to perhaps just beg forgiveness. So we get into that and a lot more and really learn about the mission and the important work that the United Way of Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley are doing. So please listen to the podcast. Bob provides great insight around his background, his history, how he got there, and the important work that the organization is doing. So thank you for joining us today on the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Podcast. We'll talk soon.
It's time to make a change.
He's a pro, no worries, right?
Yeah.
Here we are with the pro, the original pro himself, Bob Hannon. So Bob, thanks for joining us here on the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Podcast. We're thrilled to have you here.
It's good to be here. I appreciate you asking and a good opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we're all dying to know. You're well known in this market, right? But as a child, what did you want to do when you grew up?
You know, I was one of 5 children, four boys, and you know, we played sports. I mean, that's what we did. We lived it. We woke up. We went to bed. I knew I was going to be a pro athlete, that's for sure. I wanted to be a broadcaster from as long as I could remember. I think when I was, 9, 10 years old, I'd call play-by-play of games, and I would watch the television set and watch the Pirates or the Steelers growing up in Newcastle. So I always wanted to get into broadcasting from as long as I could remember. So, sort of focused that in high school, a lot of public speaking courses, a lot of writing, and then when I went to college, I studied communications, and I thought that's all I would do. I would end my career in broadcasting, and here in this market, I thought a great 20-year run. Had a lot of fun, and fortunately, I've been blessed to keep my hand in it by doing Youngstown State football play-by-play. So just to touch on that a little bit, my first year at United Way, 2008, I began in September. The plan was I would do one more year of Youngstown State play-by-play and transition out of broadcasting. But a couple of my board members would listen to games, and I had the flexibility and freedom to talk about United Way, the work we were doing, and they're like, if you want to keep doing it and YSU will keep you, keep going. So I stuck with that. So I still have that as, I call it my hobby. I devote a lot of time to it during football season, so I've been fortunate to keep with that.
That's so, and we're talking about not to date ourselves, but we grew up pre-YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Did you have your own sports show, or did you just kind of call games you were watching as a kid?
Again, I did an internship in high school at the local radio station. I got to know the sports director, and some people will remember the name Steve Meckling. He was the sports director at Channel 21. Well, he hired me in radio in Newcastle. Oh. So when I was in my first year of college, at 19, I had my own sports talk show. And I was doing high school football play-by-play. And you talk about hands-on experience. Every Monday through Friday, I did a sports talk show, 6 to 8. And then Friday and Saturday nights, I did play-by-play. So I'm not diminishing a college education. I think it's important in specific fields. But the hands-on experience that I got, I think added more value than even some of the book work that I did. So I was lucky to be at 19 doing my own talk show.
So you were really fortunate to have your own sports talk show at the age of 19, but if you're a child today and you have a passion for communicating in sports, you could probably spin up your own sports talk show right now. Right?
You could.
YouTube, Twitch.
Yep, find a niche, be different, find your own vehicle to get your name out. I think YouTube seems to be the one that's most popular, but absolutely, on any interest, whether it's sports, whether it's whatever it may be, it's changed dramatically, and the opportunities are really endless.
How long did it take you to pick up your flow or your momentum? Was there a hook you used? Were you like the nickname guy?
So, not really, but sort of my hook was I started in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and all Pittsburgh fans. Well, in baseball, I'm a Phillies fan. So I didn't do it intentionally to agitate. I think some talk show hosts take opposing viewpoints just to rile up the audience.
Right.
I think Colin Cowherd on Fox does that. He really beats up Baker Mayfield, and I think some of it's his stick. But I didn't. So a lot of my calls were anti my opinion. So I think sometimes it was a vehicle even back then to get people to call, to get people to talk. And fortunately, both teams were good. Both teams were fighting for a pennant back then. So it just worked out that way. So I felt that I had a lot of knowledge, but I wasn't opposed to taking a stand. I had an opinion. I was in the middle of the road. I think we're going to be a talk show host, and hey Jeff, I agree with you. Hey Steve, I agree with you, and you agree with everybody. I think it becomes boring and mundane.
Right. So did you find yourself, though, you're always consistent with your opinion?
Oh, yes.
To drive the conversation?
Yep. I was consistent, but I stuck by my opinions. I wouldn't waver away from them. But I felt like I was consistent, yes.
Well, was there a certain sportscaster you looked up to? So if you had to model, was it Cosell?
Good question. So being that I grew up in Newcastle, I watched Pittsburgh news. There were two. One went on to national, a guy by the name of Dick Stockton.
Yeah.
Dick Stockton still does play-by-play for Fox Sports. Dick Stockton was the man when I was growing up. He was a sportscaster at KDK in Pittsburgh, and I admired his work. I admired what he did. He went on to work in Boston, then national. Dick's got to be close to 80 now, and still does play-by-play. Right. And there was another guy by the name of Bill Hillgrove, who worked at Channel 4 in Pittsburgh. He is 80 and does the Steelers play-by-play to this day. So I looked at two guys. I always wanted to work in Pittsburgh. That was my goal, to work in the Pittsburgh market. So there really were two local guys in Pittsburgh that I tried to emulate. And on the national level, I always liked Brent Musburger. I mean, he was the original host of the NFL Today. He was the man. He, Phyllis George, Jimmy the Greek, and Irv Cross. Right, that was the team. So Musburger would have been somebody on the national level. And I always thought his play-by-play, like Chris Fowler, I think does a good job at ESPN, but I don't think he's a Brent Musburger.
Right. Did you ever reach out to any of those guys when you were younger?
So no, but yes, I did reach out to Hillgrove, and we formed a friendship.
Nice.
And when I was at WYTV, Bill Hillgrove offered me a weekend job in Pittsburgh. And I turned it down mostly because I didn't want to give up doing Youngstown State football play-by-play. This was like 1997. So sometimes things change. As a kid, I think all I wanted to do was work in that Pittsburgh market. But I preferred to stay in Youngstown because I thought there were more opportunities for me.
Right.
And I met Musburger several times.
Oh, okay.
He was a great guy.
And they're open to mentoring, say?
Oh, absolutely. When I met Brent further on in my career, I think it was 2002 at a Ohio State basketball game in Columbus. And went up to him, introduced myself. Now, you hear stories about different personalities not being so congenial and open, but Musburger was great.
So here's maybe this is like a making the sausage question, but if the game is a blowout or it's incredibly slow, what do you do to keep the momentum going?
So the hardest games are blowouts, either way, especially if it's going against you. I think you just need to have some filler material. You need to be a seasoned enough pro to keep it going, keep the flow going. Try to look at some big picture stuff. Do a good job, whoever your analyst is, to bring them in, to help them be part of the broadcast. Blowouts are really tough. You lose your audience, and if it's against you. And I think you also, when we're doing Youngstown State football, I think the audience should know we want Youngstown State to win. But we're not so much homers that at times we might have to have constructive criticism. That's hard. I never have ever, I hope I haven't, called out a player individually. They're still college kids. I might say, well, our offensive line had a rough day. We just could not run the football. But I'm not going to pick on the left tackle specifically. So those are things that I try to do with, they're not pros. If I was calling the play-by-play for the Browns, I think all bets are off. It's a little bit different story.
Right. They're highly paid.
Right.
They can take it. They have to be at the
and
top
should
of
be
their
able
game.
to take it.
Right. So what's interesting, has your career in sports broadcasting and your passion, and especially, seeing competitive situations, trying to rally people when they're down, how's that helped you with your career at the United Way now?
So I think couple things. I think it's a good question. So when I went into United Way, it was during the financial collapse of 2008. Things were tough. Our goal was $2.5 million. I didn't think we could get there. So I felt I need to keep the morale up. I need to let these people at least believe I know what I'm doing because we're not going to make our goal.
Right.
And if things go south, are they going to think, man, they hired a sportscaster, he's in over his head. So I think we kept a positive attitude, but competitive's a part of it, is a piece of it. You know, we have goals and expectations. There are some United Ways now that don't post a public campaign goal. We will always do that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Did we win? Did we lose? And to me, it's not 100% did you win or lose based on money, because you have to do good work.
Right.
But I think we'll always have a fundraising goal. This year our goal was to raise $2.5 million. I think we'll exceed that. When we put the goal in place, we didn't know what to expect with COVID. So yes, it's helped in competitive. I think it's helped in building teams. You know, having been involved in sports, I think it helps build team and teamwork and collaboratively keep people together and hopefully keep them positive. You know, Jeff, in fundraising, you're going to have some bad days. You're going to get no. It's important to keep the fundraising staff's morale up and to keep them going.
Right. Well, you know, speaking of that, how did you actually transition from your career in sports journalism to the United Way? What was that story?
So I'll try to shorten it for you,
Okay.
because maybe over a drink.
It's a podcast.
Over a drink, I'll tell you the whole story, okay?
Yeah, I can get you a beer out of my...
So we merged, 33 merges with 27 in Fox. 33 essentially closes down.
Right.
We move in up the street. I'll be completely candid. I like being the boss. I like making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I lost some of that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I had a job, but no longer was the sports director. I don't want to say I didn't like the direction they were going, but I thought it could be a little bit different.
Right.
You know, and so it was bothering me. It wasn't the same. So what was I going to do? At that time I was 47. Do I leave the market? Do I take another job? I had a wife, 3 kids. You know, it's challenging. So my boss, Dave Coy, comes to me and says, you and Stan Boney are going to host a rally on 33 for the United Way. And you're going to help them make goal. So it was for 4 counties, the 4-county market. Don Cahigas, the CEO of Youngstown Mahoning Valley, shares with me he's going to retire. I'm riding home that night and I'm like, I wonder what it takes to run a United Way. I know they do good work. I don't know the inner working. So I called Don, invited him to lunch. He says, we'll go to lunch. He thought it was to talk about the rally.
Right.
So I said, Don, what are the skill sets? He goes, you know, I was a banker. My predecessor was a social worker. It really, can you raise money?
Right.
And he goes, I think a marketing, PR background. I wouldn't think your experience would exclude you from being, you know, there is somebody internally that's probably the favorite. Here's what helped me. That was in January. They didn't interview until August. So I had a large window to do research. So I connected with some United Ways, built a good relationship with the United Way CEO in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Gary Draper. He came from a background of marketing. He goes, absolutely, your skill set could potentially do this. Mm-hmm. So I applied for the job. I was told initially there were 3 piles, interview, maybe reject. I was on the reject pile because sportscaster, hasn't done nonprofit. All I wanted was an interview. So fortunately, I had some people in town that felt maybe I could do this, made a few phone calls, said, hey, just give them an obligatory interview, see what happens. I think the first interview went really well. They invited me back for a second. And really, Jeff, what I tried to articulate was I think United Way's done great work. We need to make change. Mm-hmm. And the way I think we need to make change is we need to be more than just perceived as a fundraiser. We need to be that backbone that can bring people together, collaborate, solve big issues. And there are many United Ways doing this. We wouldn't be a lone wolf. I think the model has to change. And if we don't change, we're going to become irrelevant. If we don't change, we're going to become Xerox making mainframe computers, right? It can't continue like this.
Right.
Because the people that weren't giving to United Way would say to me, Bob, why should I give to you to give to the Y? Why should I give to you to give to Boys and Girls Club when you're going to take a percentage? United Way has always been more than that. Mm-hmm. We've done a lot more work than just fund agencies, but some people thought that's all we did. So fortunately, the board felt the vision that I put in place needed to happen, could work. Let's give them a chance. They hired me in September of '08. It took a few years to shift the model mostly because of the financial collapse.
Right.
I felt no money, no mission, right? So we needed to strengthen campaign. So fortunately, from '08 through last year, every campaign has increased. Now this one won't repeat last year. Last year was our centennial, this current. So fortunately, by 2012, we started raising enough money, I thought, to shift the model. The board was supportive. We shifted the model, what we call community impact. We still fund agencies, but we've also taken on some of our own initiatives. So that's a long answer to how I got to United Way and where it is now.
But the power of communications, right? The ability to, like you said, set the mission,
right,
and then execute on the mission, and doing it with consistent communications. Did that play a big role?
It did, and I also thought that we are going to market, we are going to tell our story, we are going to let everybody know what we're doing. We will not be irrelevant. We are, good or bad. We're going to tell our story. Now, when things don't go so great, maybe we don't send out press releases, right? But we're going to be out there, and we're going to have a report card on our work that says whether we're succeeding or not. So we definitely wanted to ramp up our marketing and our PR. Wanted to do a lot more face-to-face. The perception was campaign ran from July to December. We're going to campaign year-round.
Right.
I'm going to come ask you for a gift. I'm going to update you on our gift. I'm going to come visit, see how you're doing. So when I come once a year for the ask, it's going to be part of a 3 or 4 time visit that it's just normal that Bob comes to see me or a campaign team comes to see me. So we really put a lot of emphasis the first 5 years on campaign. Now we put a tremendous amount of emphasis on, yes, we need to raise the money, but let's make sure the donors understand that we're doing good work with the dollars that are being raised.
Mm-hmm. You have a lot of different stakeholders to juggle, correct?
We do. We have corporate giving, we have individual giving, we have workplace giving, we have foundations and grants. So there's a lot of, we've diversified. Till 4 years ago, we really didn't seek major grants. Now we receive around $1 million a year in grant funding. So when we say we raise $3.2 million, we raise an additional $1 million on grants. So we're really bringing over $4 million back to the community. Then the number we release publicly is the money we raise right here. Right. So we also bring in grant money. So we've had to diversify. When I began, about 60% of the dollars we raised were people giving out of their paycheck. Now it's about 42%.
Really?
Less people working in the valley, more competition. But the bigger challenge is people work differently. People work from home. How do we get them a pledge form? People don't go to the office. They work remotely. How do we get them a pledge form? So we had to find different ways to raise money to make sure we were raising enough dollars to make real difference in the community.
Right. Even with COVID, there are probably people working at home living here in this market, but for a company based in Chicago.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so perhaps they could be funding Chicago's United Way.
And and the neat thing about United Way is I still get significant dollars from United Ways in Florida. People that lived here and retired. So if you live here and you give to our United Way but designate to Peoria, Illinois, that money goes to Peoria, Illinois. So if you live here and you want your money to go to the United Way in Trumbull County or Columbiana or Lawrence or Mercer, so there is that vehicle that we get the money. If you prefer to give where you live, we'll get that money to that United Way.
Okay. So then, given these wide variety of stakeholders, what leadership style do you embrace to get your job done?
Yeah, so I say I want to hire really good people and get out of their way. The strength of United Way is the staff. So hopefully whenever I'm done at United Way, and I want to be there a long time, if they say anything about United Way, they're going to go, Hannon really hired good people. He found good people. So I tell people when I interview them, if you need a list of things to do every day, this is not for you.
Right.
Okay, you need to be proactive, you need to figure it out. Like our campaign team, I don't have them come in every day and say, I made 6 stops today. At the end of the month, I'm going to know if you saw the donors.
Right.
It's a sales job.
Right.
I mean, we're selling a mission. Right. So I know. So it's try to hire really good people that work in a team environment, that work well collectively, but not micromanage, but be there when they need me. Mm-hmm. And when we all have goals and expectations. If you're not living up to the goals and expectations, we need to have a conversation to find out why.
Right.
But really, and I think for some people maybe the style that I have of being too hands-off might not work for them. They might want more direction. They might want more guidance. And I work mostly on the campaign side, not exclusively. So I'm out of the office a lot, seeing donors, not as much during COVID. So I think the style we have, and also provide them as good as environment as they can have.
Right.
Like if you want to go leave early one day to watch your son or daughter play sports, leave. Right. You want to come a little late one day because you have a dentist appointment, do it. We close the office early on Fridays sometimes. We do things as a team together. We've gone and played bocce and have had dinner. So I think we do things collectively, but we have a lot of flexibility. when you work in nonprofit, no one there is going to get rich. So if we can provide flexible hours, a good environment, it helps me keep the current staff that I had. But listen, Jeff, I've made mistakes in hiring. Early on, I was listening to what people told me I needed rather than going with my gut.
Right.
And one day I ran into Greg Smith from Comco Industries, and we're talking about hiring and leadership, and he goes, "What do you know about John Maxwell?" Well, I'm very familiar now. I've read all Maxwell's books, by the way.
Right.
He said, Maxwell has a leadership style that it's about people and it's about what you need, not what. So he goes, "Have you ever been to a Maxwell conference?" I said, "No." He goes, "Would you like to go to a John Maxwell conference in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands?" I'm like, I'm in, okay, sign me up, let's go. So Greg took me to a conference, spent 4 days, and I came back and I felt it inspired me, it motivated me, it changed how I'm going to hire people and what I need to run this office. Not, people with them, you don't have nonprofit experience, so this is who you should hire. Well, most of the people I've hired don't have nonprofit experience. They can communicate.
Mm-hmm.
I've hired a lot of media people that can work on a tight deadline,
right,
that are quick on their feet, and chances are they're good in front of people. So I thought the Greg and the Maxwell experience was one that really helped turn our United Way and helped me do a better job of hiring the people. Now the next person that comes in, they might have a completely different style than me. They may have a completely different skill set they're looking for.
I mean, you just defined what an entrepreneurial environment is. Agility, working on deadlines, ability to communicate.
Exactly.
I mean, so it's a nonprofit, but really it's a highly entrepreneurial organization.
So some people told me, I think that's a great point, would say, well, it's nonprofit, you can't have goals, you can't be, no, we're gonna have goals,
right,
we're gonna have expectations, we're gonna meet those goals, and we're gonna win. And I think sometimes in nonprofits it's a much slower pace. And you don't pay as much as you would if money's your driving force, then come here, get experience, and I'll help you get a better job.
Right.
I've had people on my team that have moved on to better jobs. I've helped them leave our organization because it was better for them.
Right.
And I have no problem with that. But while you're here, we're gonna operate like a for-profit, a highly energized company, and I think our office exemplifies that.
So this is really good advice for our audience. By publishing goals and setting clear expectations, you don't have to micromanage. It's crystal clear what needs to be done.
Right.
And however you choose to get there, whatever your path is to get there, I'm here to support you. Get it done.
Yeah.
Right?
I tell them, as long as it's not unethical or immoral, beg for forgiveness, don't ask for permission, right? Just go get it done, okay, and then figure it out. And if you're in front of a donor and you're asking for a gift and you need to make a tough call, don't go, wait, I got to call the boss and see. Just make the call. Make the call, and then we'll back you. And I trust you know what you're doing.
Do you screen when interviewing people with beg for forgiveness? Don't ask permission?
I will throw that out there in front. I'll let them know you're going to have all the freedom and flexibility you want to succeed, as long as, again, ethical, this is an opportunity for you to shine. So the worst thing that could happen, Jeff, is if I hire somebody in 6 months or a year, they go, this isn't what I thought it was.
Right.
Then I didn't do a good job up front prepping you for what this is and what you can expect. So hopefully up front, maybe sometimes they get a little scared or a little nervous, or maybe they'll come back. I've had people come back and go, I don't think so. And I thought they were a good fit, but it just didn't work. And it's better for them, it's better for the organization to know up front rather than we invest all this time into somebody and it doesn't work out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what's funny, that it's a screening question I use a lot. Would you rather ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Right.
And unfortunately, I've even used it on my kids a lot, so they never ask permission.
Yeah, right.
But people get thrown off by
that
question, but it's really interesting, and I get a lot of middling. Well, if it's ethical and I think you're gonna be okay with it, I'll do it and then ask later. But I don't know. Sometimes it's just great to see the people
get their reaction up front right away. See how they respond.
Yeah.
The other thing, just quickly on hiring that I found, we have 11 in our office, 9 women, 2 men. For every 10 resumes I get, 9 are women. In the nonprofit world, unless it's the CEO position, we don't attract a lot of men to come in and work. And I get it sort of to a certain degree, the pay might not be equal to what it is in for-profit, but that's one thing I'd like to see in the Mahoning Valley is that, listen, I'm not complaining about having 9 women. They're smart, they're bright, they're articulate, but I don't get men and the only other man in my office is our AFL-CIO liaison, Billy Keel. We just don't seem to attract, and we do all the, we do LinkedIn, Indeed, we go to all the places to look for talent. We just don't get, but that's not unique to us.
Right.
That's similar to other nonprofits and to other United Ways across the country as well.
Well, we touched on this notion of leadership mistakes, and we all learn from our mistakes, obviously. So I'd invite you to share a mistake, but first I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors before we continue the conversation.
The Brain Gain is a collaborative effort, and we'd like to thank the headlining members of the coalition, including Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Moranski Companies, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition. Also included are Farmers Bank Group, Youngstown State University, Eastern Gateway Community College, the DeBartolo Corporation, Cortland Bank, MS Consultants, and 898 Marketing.
And we're back, and the good news about this podcast is we take feedback from everyone.
Yes.
And Steve here, right? Everyone knows who Steve is. Steve's the man behind the scenes making this all happen. He actually wants to know the pros and cons of having that. We share this methodology, beg for forgiveness, don't ask permission. So what do you think the pros and cons are of that approach?
Well, I don't want people to work scared.
Right.
I don't want people to feel they can't do something and I'm going to be calling them on the carpet every time they do. So I think if they ask for permission, one, it's going to drive me crazy because it's going to be in my office all the time. And I'm like, you have to make calls.
Right.
You have to make decisions. I trust you. I trust. There has to be a trust for me to them and them feeling that I made a call today. He may not agree with it, but he's going to respect that I had to make a decision. So, I guess to a certain degree that maybe some people that would prefer to know everything up front, you may be avoiding mistakes or you're avoiding maybe a pitfall of in my business upsetting a donor.
Right.
But that's okay. I mean, I think if to me, I think number one thing is trust, and I don't ever want my staff to work scared that they can't go do their job because every move they make is going to be put under a microscope.
Right. Well, and the culture you've built is one that you've reinforced this simply by the way your behavior and the way you support the team. It's an environment of trust and an environment of even to agree to disagree, I'm sure.
Yes, and this, right? Several times we do. And I tell them when we're in a staff meeting, we may all have a different opinion. But in the end, I'll probably have to listen to all the opinions and make a decision, but we're all on the same team when we leave here.
Right.
One day we struggled with that a little bit, and I said, listen, if Bill Belichick tells Tom Brady, we're going to run the ball every play Sunday, Brady may go, you're out of your mind. At the end of the day, Belichick's the coach.
Right.
And then he has to answer to that. My point was, we may not always agree on how we're going to proceed strategically, but we have to be unified. I don't want to hear on the street, this Success After 6 program, it's not going to work. How are you going to get these kids to come, blah, blah. I don't want to hear that on the street, because once we agree, then we're all on the same team. So I like good debate in a staff meeting.
Right.
But after, when we decide on our game plan moving forward, we need to all agree.
Right, agree and commit and move forward. That's good. Well, so speaking of rounding back to this notion of leadership mistakes, I mean, is there any example you have of, say, something that was very instructive in your life from a leadership mistake standpoint?
Yeah, I would say early on at United Way, I probably didn't do a good enough job when I interviewed potential employees on expectations and goals and style, and maybe I took it for granted that they knew. I really think the Maxwell philosophy helped me have a clearer vision on what I needed, how to work with people. And like Maxwell's a philosophy, not everybody believes it. I think that's the way organizations can be run and should be run. So I probably early on, when I started, I turned over some staff quickly.
Right.
But it was probably me hiring poorly because I didn't do a good enough job of bringing in people that fit the culture. So, I was young at hiring. In TV there was me and one other person, so that was on me, that I needed to maybe get experienced and get more comfortable in what I needed. I was determined. I'm going to hire seasoned fundraising professionals.
Right.
Well, the last 4 people I hired had no fundraising experience. What they could do is communicate.
Mm-hmm.
They were good writers. They could think quickly on their feet, and they mostly had a passion for United Way. And they weren't just coming in for another job, and their next job will be climbing the ladder. I think they have to have a passion and believe in the work we're doing.
What's a favorite thing about United Way that you've grown to love over time?
Is the work, raise it, like I tell donors, is raising the dollars is critical.
Right.
But when I can share stories we've done with our wraparound and our after school and our pre-K program, and I see a child that maybe was in kindergarten when we started with them in after school, and now they're soaring and succeeding in 4th or 5th grade, the work that we do makes a huge difference. Saturday Day of Caring. We began during COVID. We're taking food to people that shouldn't or couldn't be out in partnership with the Moranskis. I have a woman who calls me who's a senior, wants to write me a check for her food. These people aren't all on poverty.
Right.
She just can't be out, she's ill. But then she'll call, don't forget, I need 1% milk. Don't bring me 2% milk, okay? All right, we got you. So when I see the work that we do sort of transform a child or make a difference on a senior, then there are days when we're frustrated, like, are we really making a difference? Are we really helping Youngstown students do better? And then you look at the report card and sometimes you get demoralized because we haven't moved the needle yet academically with Youngstown City Schools, I mean collectively as a community. But then all of a sudden something happens where you see someone succeed because of United Way or have an opportunity to do better, then I think it boosts us all up.
So are there things, given your work every single day in the community, are there things that you feel like you wish you had to move the region forward? Like what's your wish list of things that if only some people say wave the magic wand, give me $1 billion. I don't think it's probably money. A lot of it's mindset too.
It is. And the one thing that I hope we can figure out at some point is how do we improve the academic performance of Youngstown City children? We've had a traditional superintendent. We've had a CEO in Krish Mohip. We've got Justin Jennings, but in terms of when most people look at Youngstown City Schools, and there are a lot of wins there, there's a lot of good stories, it's looked at as a failure. How do we get that district to go from an F to a D to a C? It's hard. I don't obviously have all the answers. We want to be part of the solution. So it frustrates us at some point. Like, we're doing a lot of good wraparound. We're providing medical, we get kids glasses, we provide food, but how does all that help eventually move a school district that's perceived to be one of the worst in the state, if not the country, into a successful mode? And I think the only way to do that is more collaboration, working more collectively, and but it's tough. I mean, there's an answer. I just don't think as a region we figured it out yet.
Do you think the emerging career opportunities we have, and say, we have many big economic development projects happening with Lordstown Motors and GM, LG Chem, Ultium Cell Battery Plant, 1,000 workers. You have Eastern Gateway Community College with great certification programs. Do you see an impact being made with mentorship programs?
Jeff, I think we need to do a better job of also, and this has been talked about, and I think we're ahead of some areas. You don't have to go to college to be successful.
Right.
You can be a welder, you can be a carpenter. So how do we partner better with labor, who does that work? How do we partner better with technical? I know when I was in school, which was guidance counselors, if you weren't going to college, they didn't have time for you.
Yeah, it just wasn't.
Right. So I think, you want to get kids ready. I think how do we get them, some kids here in Youngstown State could be 1,000,000 miles away.
Right.
Let's visit. Let's go see let's show them where you might live. Take a walk around campus, get more exposed to Youngstown State. So I think we're on the verge here of a breakthrough with children and showing them all opportunities, career opportunities. But I'm also a big advocate, it's got to start really early. I know a lot of the kids we work with, we start in kindergarten. It's like running a race. You get that kid that's coming in Youngstown compared to the kid in Poland. If the child in Poland's at the starting line, but the child in Youngstown's a mile behind, always playing catch up. So at United Way, we talk more about how do we do more work with 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds? Do we go to some of the housing developments? Do we open workshops there? Because I think, at least my perspective, a lot of the children we work with coming into kindergarten are already behind. And the teachers in Youngstown, I think, do amazing work, but you're always trying to catch them up. They're always trying to get caught up.
So this is a great place to issue a challenge to the market, right? Issue a challenge to the region. I mean, you're like you said, you're constantly in fundraising mode, working with stakeholders to drive, these programs forward. But is there a challenge you'd like to issue?
Yeah, I think I still think we're not any. It seems to me, and sometimes people say it's controversial, but we don't work well enough collectively and collaboratively. We all have our own turf.
A lot of little fiefdoms.
Okay. Listen, Mahoning County's Mahoning County. Trumbull's Trumbull. Okay. Columbiana's Columbiana. Okay. You know, north of the Jib Jab in Girard, it's different than it is south of the Jib Jab, right? Yeah. And you stay in Mahoning, I'll stay in Trumbull. How do we overcome turf wars? Some of it's who gets the credit, whose name's going to be in the paper, who takes the lead. I get it. Working together, real collab is hard. It's hard. But I think the only way is to get real collaboration, get real, look at other success stories, share those success stories, bring people together. I would say that we still are nowhere near where we need to be in terms of all of us working together to drive. Let's say we took on that challenge of Youngstown City Schools. How do all of us, if we're really going to be invested, put our egos aside? It doesn't matter where you're from or where you grew up or what part of the valley you're from. It helps Warren if Youngstown schools are better.
Absolutely.
It helps Columbiana if it helps the region. Youngstown is still the city when people are looking to move here or bring jobs in, or that's still, they don't think so much Poland or Canfield or Boardman. Right. They think Youngstown.
If you see someone in the airport in Fort Lauderdale, where are you from? Youngstown.
Right.
You don't say I'm from Canfield or Poland.
No, you don't. Right. You're from Youngstown. Right. So, and I also think we beat ourselves. I think this isn't anything that leaders haven't said, is that this is a pretty good place to live. Sometimes we beat ourselves up internally more than maybe we should. Right. There's a lot of value, I think, to living here, cost of living. I don't have to sit on a highway an hour and a half every day going to work, right? Right. I think it's a good place. Mill Creek Park, we're an hour from Pittsburgh and Cleveland. So I think we need to continue to tell our story about this is a pretty good place.
Right, changing the narrative.
That's it, changing the narrative. How do we change that story? But I know at United Way, when you ask about, we talk probably daily, if not weekly. How are we doing enough to help Youngstown City Schools be successful? What more can United Way do to be part of the solution?
Well, that's kind of why we're here, right? So that's the purpose of the Brain Gain, is to really keep our kids here and keep them growing and evolving and supporting the great mentorship programs you have at the United Way and in the wraparound work. Just outline maybe a couple of the programs just so our audience
Sure.
knows.
One of the programs that we do is Promising Men.
Right.
And what really excites us, it's a group of strong African-American men that are mentoring 5th and 6th grade boys. And I walked in on a session one day and I was blown away, Jeff. It's real. They aren't sitting there eating pizza. Right. They're talking about challenges they have without a dad in their life, or challenges they have academically, or challenges they have living with grandma. And these adult men are helping them find solutions. So it's a very real, honest conversation. We do a young women's mentorship program where we take strong women in the community and they partner with young girls in 5th and 6th grade. They've talked about everything from boys to overweight to being bullied, and these strong women try to help them. And it's a weekly, but then they talk to them on the phone. Right. Some of the women will go take them shopping on the weekend, meet the mother or meet the family or do things with them. So we do a lot of mentorship with that. We try to really, in our after-school program and homework mentoring. Homework mentoring is something that's big. We have about 400 kids where you might go in 4 times a year to the same school and work with 5 boys. You'll sit with a boy. He might have 4 A's, a B, and an F. Why do you have an F? I don't like the teacher. I like to talk. Well, how do I get that F to a C? Then you come back to the next report card and the next. It's amazing. I think it works because you care. And they're like, you're really going to come back. Mr. Herrmann, you're really coming? Yeah, okay. Then you come back and they go, you didn't let me down, you came back. A lot of the kids have been let down. A lot of the boys have been let down. They don't have strong male role models. So as you keep coming back, they want to succeed for you. And sometimes we provide incentive. Like Ed Moranski came one day and asked a boy, how do I get that D to a C? He goes, can you get me some Wendy gift cards? Because my mom works at night and I like to eat at Wendy's. Well, next thing you know, Ed's bringing 10 Wendy's gift cards. He's bringing them, Wendy's burgers. So I think those are the things. Get successful people in the community to come into the schools, partner, mentor, tell their story, relate to the kids. Those are some of the things we do where we've had success. We've seen in report card mentoring children move the needle and improve their report card because someone showed some attention and kept coming back and
again and again,
and patted them on the back and told them, you're worth something. You're doing a good job. And it might be moving a D to a C.
Right.
Listen, we've had some kids with 5 Fs, okay? And next thing you know, they got 4 Ds and a C. That's a win.
Right.
How do we try to keep making progress?
Wow. That's powerful. It really just makes you appreciate everything you have, and for everyone here involved listening today, what they can do to support this mission.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. We, like we said, sometimes we tell our story. I think we do a good job marketing and PR, but a lot of people don't know what United Way does.
Right.
When I began at United Way, and I'd ask a group of people, how many of you heard of United Way? Everybody raises their hand. How many of you know what we do? Usually the answer is something good. So that's got to change.
That's it.
You know what Boys and Girls Club does, right?
Right.
You know what the food bank does.
Yeah.
Well, now if people want to know what United Way does, we look at families and children that face barriers, and we try to eliminate those barriers. There's barriers for kids in Poland and Canfield, just like Youngstown. We're a Valley United Way. We help the entire community. So we try to eliminate barriers. We try to give them stepping stones to be successful. If that's,
right.
I hope people sort of get that image of what United Way does.
No, that's great. And kind of bringing this to a close, given the inspiring work that you do, is there a quote or any kind of leadership, philosophy?
Yeah.
Is there something you look at?
So I
every day?
told you I'm a big fan of John Maxwell.
Yeah.
I've read all his books, and in his book, you either win or you learn. He has a book. It says lose and it's crossed out learn. There's a quote, I'm not even sure I can attribute it to, but there's a quote in that book, you either win or you learn, that says the most common trait of successful people are those that conquered the temptation to quit. And the way I look at it, it's easy to quit. It's easy to give up. How do you hang in there? How do you keep grinding away? I tell our staff, we're making difference.
Right.
Don't get caught up in the big picture.
Right.
And also don't get caught up in a quick fix. Quick fixes don't work.
Right.
If you're trying to lose 20 pounds and you think you're going to do it in 2 months or 2 weeks or 2 days, you're probably, how many people go to the gym in the first of the year and quit, right? Keep grinding.
Right.
Keep every day, keep grinding. So, I try to, really live by that. Don't quit. Hang in there. Whatever you do, you're going to have success. One of the people I look up to the most in the community is Ed Moranski. I mean, when he took over the Lake Club, it was a mess. Mm-hmm. You grind away. Next thing you know, we wake up and we have a Joel, right?
Right.
Southwoods. What's Ed Moranski know about hospital? He knows a lot.
Right.
And he put good people around him, right? Next thing you know, he has an Annie Ann's empire. So I try to look at Ed as someone who I could aspire to be as good a leader as him someday. But I think you got to be persistent and grind away, and don't look at quick fixes. Quick fixes don't work.
Right.
In anything. And sort of, I know it's in the book. I know what page it's on. It's on page 80, I believe. But I don't know really who the quote came from. But it's really, I think, it's quitting is easy.
Right.
Hanging in there is hard. And I think, I'm probably going too long, but I know when I was in radio, trying to get into TV, I could wallpaper a room in my house with all the rejection letters. One day I called Channel 33 in Youngstown, I got an interview, I got hired. And I don't think it's any great quality not to quit, but I was persistent. I knew I could get a break one day, just give me a chance. And I think if you believe in yourself and you have some talent, or you believe in your work, stick with it. Don't quit. Hang in there, and I think you have an opportunity to have success.
Absolutely. We've learned a lot today, Bob. Really appreciate you've been very generous with your time, and we encourage everyone here listening today to support the United Way.
Yes,
correct?
we need
support
you.
The United Way.
It's a challenging campaign, but we're going to get to where we need to get to. And the only thing I would say, I assure you that the money's being put to good use, and you can be confident that we're doing the right things with it, Jeff.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for your time today.
Yep,
Bob.
enjoyed it.
Okay. Before we go, I'd like to thank members of the Brain Gain Coalition, especially our great sponsors. Without them, none of this would be possible. So a big thank you goes to Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Moranski companies, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition. Thanks so much for their support. And also, please follow, like, and subscribe to this series on your favorite podcast player. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn, one of my favorite places. You can find me over there at Jeff Leo Herman, and send me a message. I will see you next time.
I'm growing up in this life, and to the human that I need to be, I know that I am not alone. I'm brave, I got what it takes.